That was the first time I left Alexandria in 4 years. I snuck away during the darkest hours, evading all our security barriers. I arrived to the GOC almost 20 hours later. The land was amplified with the radiation that rose strictly from the waters. Because of that, it's always day. Rhonda's notes had almost everything I needed to survive, but the area consistently brewed with phenomena. Even though the environment was perilous, Rhonda believed any scientist who visited could survive. She believed any educated human could survive, as long as they could handle the bipolar terrain. I stumbled into many obstacles. There were toxic specimens, beings spawned by radiation. They weren't intelligent and were very much like beasts, but they all portrayed a conglomerate of cellular organisms. Imagine a cellular organism that never adapted. They looked like bodies of slime. My only weaponry was Toko. It was all I needed. With my studies, I was able to continue updating Toko, and had made him into a machine capable of destroying a sector. He also helped with guiding and avoiding other detriments. The other deleterious events included chemical reactions, explosions, gravity magic, terrain Pangea, and plenty more. I set my camp near the shore and used a magnetic force field to protect it from the weather and oscillating electrical currents. With a mobile CPU, I was able to record, analyze, research, and theorize. Whatever I didn't catch in real time, I created a system or software that would generalize and store theories from what I captured. What constituted my trip was my need to find a way to stop the looming threat of an intelligence escaping Alexandria. Or worse, H-Rod leaving our country. I knew I needed a barrier of some sort. I also knew I was the only person who could create it. The only others might have been my parents, but I know for a fact they would not have to the risk I did in visiting the GOC. From my studies involving electromagnetics and electromagnetic pulses, I figured it would have to be barrier related to the two. The clues I searched for pertained to magnetic pulses, but I needed to make one that reacted instead of it being a reaction. To make a long story short, I journeyed across an array of radiated light leaks along a purple-grained prairie. I studied them, their pulses, the radiation, the frequencies, energy. I studied everything I could. The reason I halted my journey on the purple-grained field is because of how similar a light leak and an EMP were. They were both radiation of some sorts, so I felt it could lead me to a clue. Toko protected me with his ability to create a repellent for the foul radiation in the area. I wore a hazmat suit, but excessive toxicity in the area would have penetrated its layers and eventually led to my demise. While I calculated the data I stored, I learned that the explosion of light naturally disrupted color frequencies and that it could be summoned. To summarize, the light leaks were so vile and so toxic because they were stealing light. The potent radiation came from light particles in space. These particles were minute, but when in a cluster were dangerous. The light leaks happen all throughout space, but are only deadly in a contained atmosphere, sumptuously on any planet. They used deep space's darkness as a fuel, as a catalyst causing the darkness in outer space, and the virulent radiation they displaced. However, because of this, I determined that if I could somehow use a void of light with a magnetic field, I could make the barrier, an EMP that mimics the light leaks from the Gulf. When the voided magnetic field was introduced to any form of radio waves, microwaves, infrared waves, or alpha waves, it would activate, almost like a lighter. That was all I could concur, because my trip got cut short. Many phenomena overtook the scenery while I visited the Gulf, but what eventually made me depart was the forming of comet clouds. Icy clouds covered the sky and released comet gases and particles all throughout the Gulf. Explosions brewed, and burning ice began to rot the terrain. I had no choice but to swallow my pride and ride with my findings. I discreetly arrived back in Alexandria and was surprised to find out that the country had noticed my disappearance, even though my absence was less than 40 hours.